About where I grew up, the neighborhoods I grew up in. I grew up in the Northwest Side, Logan Square, Mosa, Wicker Park, back when it was a little more affordable for families. Humble Park, so on and so forth. We always kind of joked that, my siblings and I always joked that my mom had like a really good nose for neighborhoods that we could stay in for a couple of years before the rents got too high. And so we would bounce around that area. And even though we were always kind of bouncing around those communities, one of the things that we was always stable for us was that all of us, my younger sister, well, myself and then my younger sisters for K through 8, at least, but myself for even pre-K through high school, I actually went to school in Lincoln Park for my entire schooling. So I attended a preschool in Lincoln Park. I attended Oscar Mayer Elementary, which is right across the street from DePaul's main campus. I think it's called Meyer and Magnet now because of just kind of the shift that happened there over the years. And then I attended Lincoln Park High School. And so just first and foremost, being able to see, the different neighborhoods I lived in and what the neighborhood looked like that I was living in versus the school and the neighborhood that I was going to school in, right? And seeing literally that difference on the bus, right? Damiante even spoke to that a little bit as well. In her experience, right, you see just even the shift in when you're taking the bus to school or taking the train to school, and seeing that difference in just the shift in the population, seeing the difference in the resources and what's there and what's not there. Also that difference in just, before school or after school, when you would walk around the neighborhood, how you were perceived by people and how you were seen and how you were seen. And so, always was hyper cognizant of that, of what was happening in that regard. But then in terms of also some of my individual experiences, there's one in particular, and it didn't happen in Lincoln Park. It actually happened in Bridgeport, that I can remember very distinctly happening. And I remember the incident happened, and then my mom found out about it, and then she kind of flipped out. And what happened is that I went with my father, and we went to a baseball game, to a game at Comiskey Park. And I remember distinctly, it was like a Sunday afternoon. And we went to this game, and then after the game, he was like, "Hey, we're gonna go by one of my friend's houses that lives near the stadium." And so we went by his friend's house, and it was still, like a late afternoon, like it must have been an early game, right? And it was late in the afternoon, and we were hanging out by his friend's house. And I was, like any kid, I was kind of bored because I was, I think, the only kid there at the time. And it was him and a few of his buddies just hanging out in the yard. And so I just went like to walk around the neighborhood. And they told me, like, be careful, don't go too far or whatever, right? Like you could go like a block or two if you want, but like to be careful, right? Just because it wasn't my neighborhood. And I remember seeing these kids playing basketball. I'll never forget this. They were playing basketball in the driveway, right? And it was like 2 or 3 of them, and they were like shooting hoops. And I just asked if I could jump in with them. And I must have been like I said, 11 or 12 at the time. And I'm going to date myself a little bit because this is like important to the story. Some folks might remember what happened with Leonard Clark. There was a story about a young man, Leonard Clark, in the late 90s, riding his bike through Bridgeport. He was a young black male, and he was viciously beaten by some people and by some young people in Bridgeport in an act of overt violent racism. Fortunately, I did not have that circumstance happen, but what I did have happen is that, things got a little testy. You're playing basketball, and they started hurling racial epithets at me. They started saying everything in the book that you might think about when you think about racial epithets that are said about I'm Mexican, right? And they very clearly understood that I was not that I was not white. And so they started just hurling epithets at me and saying things. And then the weirdest part was there was a commotion going on. I was just like, I was going to get ready to leave. And they kind of like looked like they wanted to like jump me. And then I saw an adult come out of the building that they were in, the house that they were in. And I thought the adult was going to say something to them about what they were doing. But instead, he just reinforced the message, right? And he was like, what the, get out of here. And he started like cursing at me and just giving me all this. And I was just kind of just shocked. And so like they were basically like telling me, get out of here and leave before we hurt you. And so, and again, this is all over basketball. We're just playing basketball, being competitive, but it turned into this thing with them where they decided that it was going to turn into, racial slurs being hurled my way.